Bueno, muy buenos días a todas las personas que empiezan a unirse a esta sesión informativa del día de hoy, 13 de noviembre del 2025. Bienvenidos. Esta sesión tiene como propósito hablar y conversar un poco sobre el convenio que tiene la Universidad de Notre Dame du Lac, ubicada en Estados Unidos, con COLFUTURO, que particularmente ofrece dos becas del 50% en el Master of Science en Global Health y una beca del 35% para quienes no reciban esa beca que acabo de mencionar. El día de hoy, como lo pueden ver, estamos con Elizabeth. Ella es representante de esta institución y nos va a brindar información súper valiosa con respecto a la oferta académica de la universidad, opciones de financiación y todos los demás temas que ella, dentro de su valiosa experiencia, pueda compartirnos. Entonces, la invitación es a que estemos muy pendientes de toda la información que ella nos comparta y que dejemos las preguntas que nos surjan a través del cajón de Q&A, que con muchísimo gusto nos va a ayudar a resolverlas al finalizar la misma. Entonces, sin más preámbulos, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today with us. You can go ahead and start your presentation.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will start with just reviewing a little bit about myself. I am the Master's of Science and Global Health Director. That means I work with students throughout the MSGH program on academic advisement mostly, but I also prepare students for capstone as well as their curriculum, both of which I'll go over in just a second. I also provide students with various types of other support throughout the program and direct them into to different resources across campus should they need them. I also conduct international research. My research focuses on nutrition, food insecurity, community-based participatory research, different types of gender dynamics, as well as maternal, newborn, and child health. I also have various research projects around virtual reality, virtual exchange, as well as curriculum-based research. So in regards to what I teach various courses in this program. I teach the primary global health principles course, the capstone field methods course, and program planning, implementation, and evaluation. So this is just a little bit about me, but I do want to continue and also introduce my global health training coordinator. Her name is Kim Bagold. If there are any questions related to the program or just anything in general, both as someone seeking information about the program or if you're currently in the program, Kim Bagold is a great resource. I also want to highlight a few of our faculty. The MSGH program at the University of Notre Dame sits within the Eck Institute for Global Health. So we don't sit within a college or a school, and that's intentional. We try to get faculty from across campus so that our program is truly interdisciplinary and everyone from every area usually teaches a course. So about the program overview, this is a 42 credit in-person program that requires around 2 years. We also just recently, it's not on this slide, but as of last year, we received a STEM designation, which is helpful if you're an international student with OPT. It also helps our domestic students who are interested in applying for NSF grants as graduate students. But in addition to being a STEM program, we also have 3 different concentrations. These concentrations may change in the next 1 or 2 years because they've been around for about 5, and it's time for us to update them based on interests from students that are coming to the program, feedback from students currently in the program, as well as our alumni that have graduated. So saying that, they won't change dramatically, but for example, vector biology and parasitology may change to something like biological sciences. These are just, again, what may happen, but currently it's vector biology and parasitology, health policy and governance, and health analytics. And then the final thing I'll touch on today is the capstone field research. Because we are a Masters of Science program, we require all of our students to conduct research. Now, it does not have to be international. It can be domestic here in the United States. It just sort of depends on the interests of the student. So this is what our program looks like. As I said, it's 2 years, including summer, and a lot of the courses are in the first year. That's intentional because we try to get students trained so that they acquire both global health skills and knowledge before you conduct your capstone field research in the summer. So you can see we have 3 different quantitative courses. So we do try to encourage students that are applying to this program to have some experience with statistics, not necessarily a full class. You can take, Coursera, and there's other online classes that you can probably find for free. We just really encourage our applicants to have some sort of statistics experience, just because we have biostatistics in your first semester and then epidemiology and quantitative research methods in your second semester. So that's 9 credits of quantitative work that we want you to do well in. Not every course on this list is 3 credits. Some of them are 1 credits or 1 credit, but you'll also notice that we have a capstone seminar course embedded in each semester, and that's to get our students prepared for that research that will be conducted. And I'll go over much more in depth what the capstone looks like at Notre Dame. Next are the concentrations that we have: health analytics, health policy and governance, and vector biology and parasitology. These are not all the courses that we include under each category, under each concentration. There may be others that get developed and taught. All I usually do is review the syllabus, and as long as it meets some of our criteria within global health, then I'll approve it. I have to date never not approved a course for a concentration. But again, some of these courses come and go, so this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. So a little bit about the capstone. The capstone is, again, that's our research that every student is embedded in. We have different models for how this is done. Sometimes we have researchers on campus that have existing research projects, and a student may get paired with them and be part of that project. We have other models where a student comes in with an idea and is able to find a faculty advisor, a capstone supervisor that is interested and has the skills and knowledge, and perhaps even the network to make that happen. So sometimes we create our own research projects. All I require is that, if that is the case, that it's a topic area of interest to the local partner as well, because we don't want to do research just for the sake of collecting data. We want to make sure that it's reciprocal. We want to make sure that it's beneficial and ethical for everyone involved. But that first semester, upon applying to the program, and should you get accepted, I send out, usually about a month before classes start, a Google form where students are presented with various types of researchers across campus. I usually spend my summers trying to connect with researchers that have the capacity to take on a student for 2 years, have research, existing or not, that is in the realm of global health. And I also try, if they're new, either to the university or to working with the program, to explain the requirements of a capstone supervisor. So some of our capstone supervisors are seasoned, they've done it a dozen times, whereas some of them may be new and are trying it out for the first time. All of that to say, once an accepted student receives this Google form, they rank their top 3. So you'll go through the different researcher profiles and rank who you think you want to work with based off their current or past research, their current skills and focus areas. There's a lot of reasons you may choose someone, but you rank your top 3. And then when you get to Notre Dame, we try to get you to connect with those 3 researchers so that you can, both of you can talk through your interests, existing research, so on and so forth. And that's how you get matched with your capstone supervisor. It's you let me know, if somebody was a really great match for you, or if you were like, yeah, this just didn't work out. You usually will let me know. And then by the end of mid to late September, you are matched with a capstone supervisor. From there, in your capstone 1 course, you create an annotated bibliography, you write a literature review, you try to form a capstone committee. So it's you and your capstone supervisor. We require at least 3 people from your committee to be at Notre Dame, including your capstone supervisor. So 2 other people, maybe your local partner, but it's around 4 or 5. I usually don't recommend more than 5 people be on your committee because it's too many people to gather at one time, especially researchers. So that's what you do in your first semester. You're trying to build the bones of your capstone project. And by the end, so right now in about 2, 3 weeks, all of the committees I'm on, I'm going to sit and listen to my first year students present on what they think they want to do for their capstone. So it's the beginnings of the methods. And during this committee meeting, we give feedback. It's not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to be death by firing squad. It's supposed to be collaborative and productive so that you get everybody's feedback and then you go into the next semester where I teach the capstone field methods course and you refine your methods based off of the feedback from your committee. So in your second semester, that's what we do. We finalize your methods and then we're submitting everything to the ethical review board, both at the University of Notre Dame and wherever it is that you're working. And it could be that you're working in a country that doesn't have an IRB or a place that doesn't have any sort of ethical review board. Like if you're working here in the United States and maybe there's not anybody that, or not any board that exists. That happens sometimes, but most often for most students, you're submitting 2 IRBs. One to the, and again, that's institutional review board. That's your ethics people to make sure that what you're doing is ethical. But for the most part, people are applying to the University of Notre Dame's and wherever it is that you're working. In addition to the IRB, you're submitting a timeline and a budget. Every capstone project is covered by the MSGH program. We have a budget of around 7,000 US dollars if it's an international project. If it's a domestic project, usually it's a bit cheaper because we're not having to pay for an international flight. But it varies, and some students will get additional scholarships. There's a lot of different revenue streams at Notre Dame when it comes to conducting research. So we also try to connect you with those as well. But for the most part, it's around 7 grand, and the timeline varies. Some students, I work in East Africa, so sometimes my partners can handle having someone there for 6 to 8 weeks, but more often than not, for me and my students that work with me, it's about 4 to 6 weeks. But then we also had a student this last summer that worked for 12 weeks in Belize because it worked with her budget, it worked with the local partners, and in that case, it was appropriate. So it just varies based off of student. But regardless, it's a balancing act there too, where you're trying to balance your budget and the feasibility and capacity of your timeline. And then once all of those items are approved, that's when we purchase your tickets. And we issue you your funding for the capstone project in the form of a scholarship so that every student, once they get on a plane or the community in which they work, they have the money available to them to conduct research. We very much understand and recognize that not everyone has access to a credit card or just funds. So we really try to avoid reimbursing students. We try to pay up front, like we pay for the flight. If you go through Notre Dame Wellness Center for, say, you need vaccinations, we get that invoiced to our program. Anything we can pay for up front, we try to. And then once all of that is approved and you are done, you go out and you collect data wherever in the world that may be. Again, we have students work domestically in the United States. We have students work abroad on most continents. It really just depends on the project and the capstone supervisor. And when you go as well, depends on you, your supervisor, and your committee, specifically your local partner. We have some students that try to do a bulk of their work at the beginning of summer so that they can maybe go home for a month or 2. like in July and some of August, that's fine. As long as all of this is worked out with your capstone supervisor and local partner, the program is totally okay with it. We want to be accommodating to personal responsibilities as much as programmatic responsibilities. But once you come back in your second year, that's when we analyze your data. So we have students that collect qualitative data, they may collect quantitative data, they may collect basic science data, or a mixture of some of those. But that in your second year fall is when you analyze all of it. I will tell you that a lot of my second years right now did mixed methods research, and a lot of them are still analyzing, and it's mid-November. So this is the time when you finalize your finalize analyzing your data, and you finalize your results section of your paper. So you're transitioning your capstone proposal from the spring to a capstone paper. This is also the time where students I work with, I preferred not to write for them to write a thesis. I prefer for them to write a manuscript. So I try to get them to think about what journals do you want to start thinking about so that you can structure your paper around that journal submission. But not every capstone supervisor requires a manuscript. I do because a lot of my partners are researchers, so international researchers, and it helps their research profile as much as mine or yours. So I really like manuscripts, as do some of the other faculty, but there's also some that don't, but that varies. And then finally, in your final semester, that's when you start disseminating your findings. So you may be presenting at conferences. We have a 3-minute thesis competition at Notre Dame that I very much encourage our students to do. We have a global health colloquium that they all present at, but the whole point is to practice, 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 so that by the time your defense comes in April of your final semester, you're presenting your research to your committee and anyone else because they are considered open. So anybody can come in and watch you, but you want to pass that. You want to pass both your presentation and your paper. That is your defense. And so once your committee members deliberate, that determines whether or not you graduate. To date, we've never had anyone not graduate. Usually we try to catch that ahead of time and have some sort of intervention that may require them presenting over the summer, or maybe they present their early findings and do it again over the summer. It just depends on the situation. But we really, really try to avoid our students presenting and then kind of crashing and burning. We want everybody to feel supported. So that's why we have a lot of checks and balances throughout the capstone courses to identify any students that may be struggling. So these are just a few of our capstone research profiles, or capstone supervisor profiles. We have Vanya Smithoka. She's worked with obstetric violence, reproductive health. She herself is a medical anthropologist. She's worked in areas around Mexico. She has worked throughout the United States. While she has never been to Kenya, she has conducted research with Kenya or Kenyans. Dr. Laura Miller Graff, she works as a psychologist and works in areas of violence and trauma. She has also worked in Mexico, but also Palestine. And I think she also has an intervention here locally in the South Bend, Indiana area. Dr. Joyce Adams works in maternal, newborn, and child health. She's worked in areas in Ghana, but also has several interventions, one with myself here locally in South Bend, Indiana. Michael Rieger, he is our epidemiologist. So he does a lot of chronic disease, food insecurity, nutrition, and how all of that relates to cancer. So he does a lot of work around different types of cancer and conducting, again, various types of epidemiological research. He also just got a grant for a local project around food insecurity and how chronic diseases are related to food pantries based on the availability of food at food pantries. Then we have Dr. Ellis Adams. He is in the Keough School for Global Affairs, and he has more of a water governance and environmental policy background. He works in areas in Malawi, but I know he just started a project in Peru as well. And then there's Santosh Kumar. He also works in nutrition, but specifically more anemia, child nutrition, but also global health economics. So he does a lot of advanced epidemiological studies as well, but also has a really great epidemic or economics perspective. Again, these are just a few of the different researchers across Notre Dame's campus that have worked with our students. And these are some of the projects. So on the left, this was a qualitative study where a student gathered perspectives from palliative care workers on gender-based violence in Uganda. In the middle was a student who was collecting, again, qualitative data around the facilitators and barriers of breastfeeding in northern Ghana. And then on the right is a student that collected blood samples, and I think he also did a questionnaire in the northern highland area of Ethiopia. So we have a spectrum of different projects that students work with. Some of them work with policy, some of them work with data analytics, health analytics. We have, like I said, just a whole spectrum of different projects available to our students. So getting towards our admissions, we have some recommended background. One, it is required to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. We do really recommend 2 upper level science courses, but that's not always required, especially if you're interested in policy. At least 1 statistics course. As I said before, this is highly recommended because we have 3 quantitative courses throughout the program. We have a 3.0 GPA requirement or above on a 4.0 scale. So before we review any applicant, we convert their transcripts. If it's not already a 4.0 scale, we convert it to 1 before we review it. GRE scores are not required, and should they be included in an application, we do not review them so that we are being equitable to everybody that has applied. What is required is a curriculum vitae or a resume, a statement of intent, and there is no requirement for length. With the statement of intent, I just really ask that applicants consider talking about why this program, what do they intend to do with the degree, things like that. You don't have to repeat your CV or resume because we've got that. We can see what you've done. So we really want to see, why are you choosing this program and what do you intend on doing with it? Length, is maybe no more than 3 pages. We have some that are longer than that, but really anywhere between 1 to 3 pages is fine. Letters of recommendation, we require 3, and they do not have to be just academic, or any of them have to be academic. In other words, if you've been outside of school for, a few years, and you don't have access to anybody like a former professor, that's okay. You can have a former or current supervisor of some sort. So it does not have to be an academic recommendation. And then the final requirement are transcripts. At the application stage, you are more than welcome to submit unofficial transcripts, but should you be accepted before registration, we would require official transcripts be sent to our graduate school. So that's what the admissions process looks like. And in terms of deadlines and funding, we have international applicants have a regular action deadline of January 31st. So that means that January 31st, we usually will review the admissions committee will review everything that is submitted up until that point. And we very much, within 2 weeks of this deadline, try to get you an answer. So we try to review and get you something, some sort of letter back immediately. When it comes to funding, the program, have various types of funding. It does, vary year to year based on our own resources, but they are merit-based, and it varies based on the application pool, as I just said, and the availability of funds. With COLFUTURO, we offer 2 50% scholarships, and then from there, 35%. And then we do very much encourage you to apply sooner so that if we do have the funds available, then we can dedicate them to you. We, for example, can't do that if it's later in the application cycle and we've already dedicated a lot of scholarships to other people, then it makes it harder to move money around. There is also a graduate school application waiver. I can put this in the chat later on, but during the Q&A. But this, if you feel that you qualify or are eligible for this, then you do not have to pay for the graduate or the application for this program. And I think the graduate school, I think all you have to do is, it's a pretty basic form, maybe just a small paragraph, not even an essay sort of requirement. So I could not find the housing and cost of living for 2025 and 2026, but this was for fall of 24 and spring of 25. You can see what our tuition is. Usually it goes up $1,000 to $2,000 US every year. You can see what housing and food, books and supplies, these are just averages, what they tend to look like after all of these costs are added up. And this is for an academic year. So this is not the semester, this is the academic year. Okay, are there any questions? Or I think I've done well on time of 30 minutes. Okay, so I think I have enough time for questions if anyone.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your presentation. Well, about questions, we have one question and it's about the requirements to be admitted in the university. Do you require a specific GPA to be admitted? And this it could be variable, depends of the study area.
We require a 3.0 GPA or above on a 4.0 scale. So if it's a 5.0 scale, we convert it to 4. So 3.0 is our requirement, and it can be in any field.
Okay, perfect. Elizabeth, it's possible to have a job meanwhile the person is studying a master program in Notre Dame du Lac?
Yes, absolutely. We encourage students. We have various connections. We can't guarantee a job, but we can connect you with people through either jobs on campus. But there's also some jobs, the EC Institute for Global Health. We try to prioritize master's students in this program to hire as student workers. We also have research assistants and graduate assistants that are available at various places at various times. It's just not guaranteed, but we have an international student right now who serves as our student worker. We have another international student who is working with Dr. Joyce Adams on one of her interventions. And it just depends, but the graduate school at Notre Dame requires up to 20 hours per week. So a student cannot work more than 20 hours per week.
Perfect. Well, Elizabeth, so we didn't have any more question for you right now, so thank you again. This session has been recorded, so we will send this to all the attendees, and also we a follow-up message if you want to send them.
Okay, thank you so much. And let me, if you just give me just a second, I will put that waiver.
Yeah, perfect. The rate application waiver. Listo, les acabo de compartir en el chat a todos el link que Elizabeth muy amablemente nos compartió. So, well, Elizabeth, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next similar opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Ok, y a todas las personas que asistieron también muchas gracias por su participación. Pronto les enviaremos la grabación de esta sesión si no pudieron estar en su totalidad y feliz tarde para todos. Hasta luego. Gracias, Elizabeth. Thank you.